Lindy Somek, who is from the Saginaw Ojibwe Nation, and she's going to deliver our land acknowledgement today. Lindy.
Bonjour, Lindy Somek, Indigenous, Amik-Dodam, Saginaw Chippewa Dojaba, Anishinaabe Kwe and Dow.
I'm sick and tired of this Democratic Party bringing a pencil to a knife fight. We cannot be the only party that plays by the rules anymore. We've got to stand up and fight. We're not going to have a hand tied behind our back anymore. Let's grow a damn spine and get in this fight, Democrats.
The privilege of my lifetime was stand beside someone we know was the most qualified and would have been a fantastic president in a President Harris. And look, we wouldn't wake up every day to a bunch of on TV and a bunch of nonsense. We would wake up to an adult with compassion and dignity and vision and leadership doing the work, not a man-child crying about whatever's wrong with him. May his fat ankles find something today. Petty as hell. Think of how easy it would be to be a damn Republican. Oh, what should I wear today? This stupid freaking red hat. What should I say today? I don't know, just make sure it's cruel. Who do we listen to? That guy. Oh, the felon in the White House? Yeah, listen to him and that will be fine. Now he's talking about burning flags. He's gonna have flag burning or whatever.
Dude, 44 times, and we'll sue him 44 more and 44 more after that. And we have sued him for gender-affirming care. Yes, we are not going to scapegoat our transgender community.
On Monday in Minneapolis, at the annual meeting of the Democrat National Committee, the governor and the attorney general of Minnesota both delivered what can only be described as crazed, unhinged rants, and I'll put some excerpts at the start of the video so there's no question about whether those adjectives apply. These rants were largely about how very dangerous religious conservatives are, how they should be perceived as a threat, how determined they are to target and attack something called our transgender community, and how imperative it is for we, the Democrats, to fight back against this supposed aggression being directed at this so-called community. On Wednesday in Minneapolis, a young man who thought he was a young woman went and shot up a Catholic school, and now 2 little kids are dead, and another 14 wounded, and all the same Democrats who whooped and hollered and cheered through those militant, unhinged rants by Tim Walz and Keith Ellison. They tell us we are not allowed to jump to any conclusions about the shooter's motivations. I don't often say things like this. In fact, I try as much as possible to avoid saying things like this, but sometimes in life, one has to call things what they are. And our current crop of elected Democrats are terrible, awful, vile, evil, demonic, morally irredeemable human beings. It's Thursday, the 28th of August. This is Curmudgeon's Corner. From high atop the battlements of Castle Curmudgeon, where I don't feel much like opening with a pithy witticism today. Good afternoon, Mr. and Mrs. America and all ships at sea. Welcome to Curmudgeon's Corner. Let's talk about YouTube. Because, hey, I might as well go big or go home on this one. As it is, I'm going to be using lots of words and phrases that are likely to get this video sent to algorithmic hell even quicker than all the rest of my content normally does, but YouTube has got some splaining to do, and this needs to be talked about. Are you allowed to make open, explicit terrorist threats on YouTube, just as long as you're a transgender? Are you allowed to make firearm content on YouTube that is plainly designed to frighten and intimidate your future murder victims, just as long as you're a transgender? Because it sure as shit looks that way from where this reporter is sitting. Why was the Minneapolis shooter's YouTube page never pulled down until after he had committed the horrific acts he had threatened to commit? Fortunately, some quick-thinking people were able to grab the content before YouTube memory holed it, and it seems utterly inconceivable that this guy's content didn't raise any algorithmic red flags. We've seen lots of times gun-related channels by normal law-abiding citizens get demonetized or pulled down altogether because YouTube decided that the guns they were showing were just too darn scary looking. But a guy who plans to mow down a bunch of little kids at a Catholic school, well, he's free to show off his arsenal and show himself writing explicit terrorist threats all over his magazines, and it's okay because he's a transgender? It's okay because he has the correct political views? It's okay because the people he wants to kill are Jews and Catholics and Trump supporters? You can't upload any video to YouTube without having to answer a whole bunch of questions about violent content, controversial content, threatening content, firearm-related content. But you want me to believe this maniac somehow just fell through the cracks unnoticed? until after he had gone and shot up a school just like he said he was going to? You can go ahead and believe that if you want to, but I, for one, don't believe it for a damn second. I believe YouTube and most other video sharing / social media platforms are happy to make exceptions to their own rules and allow content they would never dream of allowing otherwise, content that promotes and threatens actual real-world violence and killing, just as long as you're a transgender. YouTube has a hell of a lot to answer for here. They cannot be allowed to get a free pass and pretend like this never happened. And the greasy, sleazy, jackass mayor of Minneapolis can't be allowed to get a free pass either. Because this guy might be the honest-to-God worst person in the whole wide world. He spent yesterday afternoon and evening running around to every TV camera with a red light on it, maniacally railing against anyone who has the temerity to suggest that the Democrat Party's sacred cow of transgenderism might have anything to do with this mass shooting, or the, 7 of the last 8 mass shootings that were carried out by transgenders? When are we allowed to talk about it, Mayor Fry? How big does the pile of dead children have to get before we have your permission to begin asking questions that your party deems politically inconvenient? How many more years have to go by? How many more mass shootings have to happen before you people, our self-appointed cultural overlords, will acquiesce to having a conversation about the possibility that maybe when you radically alter a minor child's brain chemistry by pumping it full of cross-sex hormones and so-called puberty blockers, that this might cause deleterious health effects that we don't fully understand? Because in a lot of Democrat states, probably most Democrat states at this point, and I know for a fact this is the case here in California, they start filling kids' heads with radical gender ideology when they are in the 3rd grade. 9-year-olds, dude. That's when they start hearing all of these sick, depraved words and phrases that are oh so fashionable on the left. All this crap about sex assigned at birth, and some girls have penises, and some boys are born in a girl's body, and some people's gender doesn't align with their physical sex characteristics, and lots of other monstrous, evil bullshit that no small child should ever be subjected to. If you were consciously setting out to produce thousands of hopelessly confused, mentally unwell children, you couldn't come up with a much better way of doing it than that. And let me just throw this out here because it's the truth. If you are totally cool with public schools encouraging children to consider radically altering their body chemistry and potentially having irreversible gender mutilation surgery when they are still too young to drive a car or buy a pack of smokes, but you recoil in horror at the thought of a King James Bible being anywhere near that same public school, then congratulations, you're a fucking crazy person, and you shouldn't be anywhere near anybody's children. Actually, you're worse than a crazy person. You are a child sex predator. So from the age of 8 or 9, these poor impressionable children have their heads pumped full of this intellectual pig slop. Far too many of them wind up with bona fide externally induced mental illnesses, and by the time they get to high school, what's the messaging they receive from their teachers and administrators? Are they encouraged to be self-confident people who are comfortable living in their own skin? Nope. They are told just the opposite. If you're uncomfortable in your own skin, well, you can just swap it out for a new skin. They have transgenderism marketed to them like it's a get-rich-quick scheme. If you're confused about your gender identity, if you're insecure about who you are, well, there's an easy solution for that. Just start identifying as the opposite sex, because being trans is the coolest, hippest, funnest, most fashionable thing you can do. All the cool kids are doing it. And don't worry about your parents getting upset, because this will just be our little secret. The last thing we want is your intolerant religious parents standing in the way of your journey and your exploration of your true self. And yes, this is child sex predation. We need to stop calling it anything else but what it is. It is no less odious or sinister than a guy in a windowless van driving around asking kids if they want some candy. In fact, it's actually worse, because this form of child sex predation happens inside the actual school, and the predators are the very same teachers and administrators who are supposed to be trusted authority figures, but who view it as their sacred mission to continue feeding bodies into the transgender medicine meat grinder, because after all, every industry needs to safeguard its supply of raw materials. But once they are fed into that grinder, they're captured for life, both by unscrupulous Frankenstein doctored child mutilators and their paymasters in the insurance and pharmaceutical industries. So it's a pretty unmistakable irony, I think, that many of the purple-haired, nose-ringed school teachers who push this crap the most enthusiastically like to fancy themselves anti-capitalist, when in fact they are dutiful handmaidens for the most evil, most monstrous, most morally indefensible form of capitalism that has ever existed on the face of this planet since the demise of the Atlantic slave trade. This has to be stopped. All of it has to be stopped. If it takes drastic brute force action by the central government, then that action must be taken without delay. If the current Republican Congress doesn't have the courage and the moral clarity to pass the requisite legislation, then the President of the United States will have to take executive action. This is about saving children from sex predators. No action in pursuit of that goal can ever be excessive or overreaching. Gender ideology must be purged from every classroom, in every school, in every county, in every state in the Union. If you're a doctor who has ever performed cosmetic surgery on the sex organs of a minor child, you shouldn't just lose your medical license, you should die in prison. If you're a grown-ass man who wants to get your jollies by wearing a dress in public, then go ahead, be my guest, free country and all that, but you will stay the hell away from children. And the cultural normalization of this stuff needs to end, because it's not normal, it's the opposite of normal. It's not healthy, it's the opposite of healthy. There is a reason why we call these things perversions. That is the correct descriptor, and it always has been. The maniacal drive to make this stuff socially acceptable has not made the world a better place. It's made the world a decidedly and demonstrably worse place by every conceivable metric, and it is way past time for normal people to stop looking the other way out of some misplaced desire to be tolerant and understanding. Because at a certain point, all you do is make yourself an unwitting accessory to one of the most monstrous forms of evil ever witnessed on planet Earth. I'm done, that's all I've got. Thanks for watching, see you next time. Get off my lawn.